I'll say it. This is the worst adventure I've ever been on. I can promise you there definitely was a story here before. Do we need to restart the game again? Well, I find it unlikely that we'll ever progress by starting over and over again, but it's got to be better than this. Okay, let's give it a shot. Why not?
Some people want to write a book, others want to buy a house, and others want to climb the Everest. I'd like to make a video game at some point in my life, though I wouldn't complain if I got the house instead. And no, so far I haven't made any games. Well, okay, I have, but none that I'm not embarrassed by. What I have done though is watch lots and lots of tutorials on YouTube and other paid platforms about how to make games in Unity, Godot, Unreal, Excel, etc. Through all these tutorials, I have learned a lot about the technical side of games, and even though I still haven't made one, it's helped me better understand every game I play. The quality of the assets, the importance of gameplay over graphics, the small details that make a platformer good, and many other things that I can now recognize about how games are made. But despite falling into the tutorial loop and investing more hours and money into them than I like to admit, the biggest lesson about game development didn't come from a tutorial, not even from the great Brackeys. The ultimate guide on what a video game should be, I found in another game. One whose name already sounds like something much bigger and more profound, because it truly is. The Stanley Parable, Ultra Deluxe. For those who don't know it, it's a narrative, choice-based game that started as a Half-Life 2 mod. Due to its success, it's been relaunched twice as a standalone game, adding extra content over time, like its latest version, Ultra Deluxe, which I'll talk about today. Since I finished this game several years ago, no other game has felt the same, because, thanks to it, I could now see the threads pulling the plot and mechanics. The Stanley Parable made me enjoy some games more, while also making me a little harsher on others I thought I loved. And no, this isn't about saying all games should copy it, not at all. Instead, the themes it tackles so intelligently and humorously, especially humorously, make us question our role as players or developers in any game. In this video, I'll go over the main lessons this game told me about how games should be. If you are like me and have this humble dream of developing a game someday, I hope this video helps you. And if you don't want to make games, just play them, I think this video and this game can still be for you. Because, seriously, nothing feels the same once you finish it. About 40 times or so. And yes, there will be spoilers in this video. If you haven't played it, it would only take you a few hours and you can come back later. If you rather watch this video first, it's fine too. 99% of the most surprising and interesting things about it can only be understood by playing it. Thanks for your attention. Let's get into the video. The first lesson this game taught me was that size matters. I feel like there should be a joke here. Strange. Anyway, the point is, this game is brutally precise. It lasts just enough minutes to say what it wants to say, no more, no less. It has a compact yet dynamic map that acts like another character in the story, full of small details. As for the characters, you, the player, know just enough about the protagonist to see yourself in him. The narrator, you learn just enough about him at a perfect pace. It's an ambitious game in what it wants to say, but not in what it wants to show off. No filler, no wasted resources to stretch the game longer than necessary. Yes, Ubisoft, I'm talking to you. The Stanley Parable is a condensed game, an ideal example of what 1 or 2 developers can do with a limited budget and a great idea. At the same time, it pokes fun at industry pitfalls to avoid, especially for indie devs, like artificially lengthening games with pointless collectibles, adding nonsensical paid content, or announcing a game when you don't even know what it's about yet. A useful lesson for not starting something you can't finish, and as players, for not blindly believing every promise made by some early access games. Next lesson: knowing when to stop. Let me propose something. Play this game imagining the narrator is actually the game developer talking to you, the player. That's when you will realize it's an allegory for development hell. That endless loop many projects fall into when they lack clear direction from start to finish. Deciding when a creation is ready for the public is a deeply personal choice, but it's important to distinguish ready from perfect. Because if you aim for the latter, you might spend 10 years making the same game and never release it. This has happened to big studio and indie devs alike. Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe makes us reflect on how infinite iterations of the same idea don't necessarily improve it, and how chasing perfection can be the biggest thirst of failure. It also touches on the frustration of receiving negative or even just not great feedback. The narrator is a good example of how hard it is to set ego aside and handle the reality of your creation versus your expectations. Seeing it in him might help you recognize it when it happens to you. In short, if you are making a game, don't be like the Stanley Parable's narrator. Let go. Something imperfect but alive is better than something perfect that never existed. Wise words from my father. About me, I think. Lesson number 3. Not everything has to happen in a space or a castle. Sci-fi and medieval fantasy are common settings for games, and I'm a huge fan of them. Which is why the Stanley Parable hit me twice as hard. It's one of the best stories I have experienced, and it takes place in a setting as mundane as an office. Okay, fine, the office exists too, but there is no Dwight here and it's still good. My point is, this game showed me that great stories can happen anywhere, not just on a spaceship or a battlefield. Keeping this in mind gives developers more creative freedom and, as a player, opens your mind to trying games outside your comfort zone. And remember, if you think there is no Dwight in your office, it's because you are the Dwight. Number 4. Everything is part of the game. It sounds obvious, but many games forget this or don't commit to it as much as they could. The Stanley Parable decides from the start to have a humorous, mysterious tone, and it carries this into every aspect, inside and outside the gameplay. From the marketing campaign to the personality and interactions with the game's menu, the environment's decor, everything goes through the same filter: humor and mystery. Choosing a tone and a style early on and staying true to them isn't a limiting cage. It's a guide for development, giving your work consistency and helping achieve that coveted player immersion. Every menu, every UI element, present or missing, every message on the board is an opportunity to reflect your game's tone. And it's these small details that together make a huge difference. And finally, lesson number 5. Constantly ask yourself what if. This was the development philosophy David Redden and later William Pugh too used for the Stanley Parable. What if the player doesn't do what I say? What if they jump off the platform? What if they stand still for too long? Playing it, you can see how they question every step, how much freedom to give the player, or rather, how much illusion of freedom to create, because at the end of the day, that's what video games are. They give you control to do what you want within a set of mechanical limits. Balancing player freedom is one of the hardest parts of development. Regardless of the genre, you need enough to maintain the illusion of control, but restrict it just enough to fit your mechanics and narrative without frustrating players. This concept of player freedom is, I think, the game's core lesson and a great example of what you can achieve by asking what if at every turn. One example is everything that happens in the broom closet. The ultimate allegory for player rebellion against the author, choosing to stay there instead of exploring the rest of the game. And why wouldn't you? It's one of the most interesting and fun areas in all of gaming. Please don't miss it. Another example is when the narrator introduces the line, literally a yellow line marking the only path you're supposed to take. It sounds ridiculous until you catch yourself following lines in GTA. And no, this isn't about every game needing 40 plus possible endings. Some genres clearly don't need that. It's about adopting this what-if methodology as a mindset, because it can lead to something unique for your game. What if the story is told like real life, without cutscenes? What if instead of controlling the battle from above, you control it from within? What if you could beat the final boss without firing a single bullet? This didn't just impact me as a hypothetical developer, but also as a player. Now, in every game I try, I push the limits of the freedom I'm given. And I appreciate it way more when that's rewarded with extra content or a unique weapon, rather than punished or limited with an invisible wall. The other day I watched a talk by Sanderson, the writer, I'll link it below, where he reflected on how the rhetoric of follow your dreams or if you work hard enough you will achieve anything can be very cruel and manipulative, because reality doesn't work that way. Every day, millions of people work hard for a dream, and not all of them succeed. This happens a lot in indie game development. To put it in perspective, Steam alone released around 50 new games per day. But in this talk, Sanderson also says this doesn't mean you shouldn't try. Just do it for the right reason. Define your idea of success, not the one the industry imposes. Don't do it to be the next GTA 6. Don't chase a genre just because it's trendy. Do it because it will make you proud, because you want to deliver a message, because you just want to, even if no one plays it. The Stanley Parable has a lot to teach here. If this mod or game had been born to be a commercial success, no one will talk about it today, because it wouldn't be half as crazy as it is. Its real success was being released as a work true to the author's original vision. And yes, I'm glad games like this do get recognition. Otherwise, I might never have played it. But I'm even happier that commercial success clearly wasn't its end goal, and the best jokes in this Ultra Deluxe edition are about this. If I ever make a game and manage to apply 2 or 3 of these lessons, I think I could be proud. I could call it a success even if no one plays it. And well, if I never make a game, I would still be grateful for playing the Stanley Parable, because it changed how I experience all other games. It made me admire every indie dev who finishes and releases a game, even if it's not my taste. It helped me see games narrative differently, opened my mind to spending more time on this kind of experiences, and above all, I think the mere existence of this and thousands of other bold games is a success. Not just for the creators, but for all of us who see video games as so much more than just games.
Blackness and a rising chill of uncertainty. Was it over? Yes! He had won! He had defeated the machine, unshackled himself from someone else's command. Freedom was mere moments away. And yet, even as the immense door slowly opened, Stanley reflected on how many puzzles still lay unsolved. Where had his co-workers gone? How had he been freed from the machine's grasp? What other mysteries did this strange building hold? But as sunlight streamed into the chamber, he realized none of this mattered to him, for it was not knowledge or even power that he had been seeking, but happiness. Perhaps his goal had not been to understand, but to let go. No longer would anyone tell him where to go, what to do, or how to feel. Whatever life he lives, it will be his. And that was all he needed to know. It was perhaps the only thing worth knowing. Stanley stepped through the open door.
Well, that's it for this video. What about you? Do you know any underrated indie game or hidden gems? Recommend them in the comments so more people can discover them. I will start. The Final Station. Maybe I'll talk about it someday. In any case, I sincerely hope this video was worth your time and really thank you for stopping by. You can also subscribe and give it a like if you want, and if not, it's okay, maybe next time. Take care, don't stay up too late, drink water and all that stuff. See you in the next video. Bye.